Hello, music fans. You're watching Death by Unicorn, where we talk about metal, rock, and prog music. And today's video, I'll go over my top 25 progressive rock albums of 2025. And this list is going to focus exclusively on prog rock, not prog metal, as my top 25 albums of 2025 has already been put out, and the vast majority of those are already prog metal. So I wanted to spotlight a lot of the prog rock releases that I didn't get to mention on that list. Though some of these are also in my top 25 albums overall as well. Before I jump into the list proper, I'm going to give a few honorable mentions and I'll just rapid fire those and then we'll get into the list. I'm sharing a Spotify playlist here, which I'll put in the description too if you want to listen to these tracks. Number 26, I've got Cardiac's LSD, great experimental progressive psychedelic art rock with post-punk, pop, and avant-garde influences. Another honorable mention is Brass Camel with their album Camel, great progressive art rock with some classic rock, hard rock vibes to it. Number 28, Nuova Era with their album, uh, it's the Italian, I think it's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Great symphonic progressive rock from Italy. And my last honorable mention before I jump into the top 25 is Akhenaton with Crónicas Intrascendentes. This is an Argentinian one and it's symphonic progressive rock, some heavy psych influences. So check those albums out and let's jump right into the top 25 now. So at number 25, got Oak with Sensory Over, or The Third Sleep is the name of the album. My favorite track on it is Sensory Overload, and this is probably the most metal track on this list, even though the album itself isn't metal. This track is the last track on the album, and it ends with some death growls after the whole album uh, doesn't have any other death growls until this very last song. So the album I didn't really consider a metal album. It's more of a prog rock album. It's kind of alternative and got electronic, even some poppy moments and some folk moments on here. It's very doomy, very sad sounding. This is the fourth album by this Norwegian band, and I really enjoyed the low voice for the vocals, really deep kind of singing, much lower than what you typically hear in a rock band. I also enjoy the keyboards and the guitars and how they sound together. The music and the vibe actually reminds me a lot of Catatonia, really sad, really ambient melancholy. Not really a metal album, like I said, but there are some moments that are reminiscent of metal, and I think metal fans would like this. But check out this track, Sensory Overload, which is my favorite on the album. But another favorite is Shapeshifter, which has great piano. Mellotron is really beautiful. And yeah, Shimmer's another great track on here. So check that out. The Third Sleep by Oak is my number 25 prog rock album of 2025. Now at number 24, I've got Moonletters and their album This Dark Earth. This is symphonic progressive rock. It's got some hard rock, psych rock influences. Check out this track, Silver Dream, for a preview. That's my favorite track on the album right now. And this is the third album by Moonletters. They're an American band. It's the first that I've heard from them. Whole album's excellent. Uh, this one is in my excellent tier, as are all the other ones that I mentioned so far. And yeah, this song, Silver Dream, has a pretty awesome moment around the 5 minute mark. It's a nice surprise when it goes into almost a mariachi band sound with horns and lots of energy. But every track on this album's excellent. The instrumentals are amazing. I was tempted to even put this higher on my list. The only thing holding me back from giving this near masterpiece level was I wasn't too keen on the vocals. I'm not sure if they're worthy of a near masterpiece tier. They're good, but I expect if they could get their lead vocals to the next level of power, they could become a pretty big band in the prog scene. And this album's awesome. It ends with a prog epic track called Dawn of the Winterbird that's over 17 minutes long, so gotta love it. At number 23, Magic Pie with Maestro. This is symphonic progressive rock as well, but again, it's kind of more hard rock, got some Deep Purple vibes to it as well. Check out this track, Someone Else's Wannabe. This is their sixth album. They're a Norwegian band. I've never heard any album by Magic Pie before this one. And the album starts with an 18-minute prog epic called Opus Imperfectus Part 1. The Missing Chord, an amazing track, great way to start the album. The vocals are well done, catchy, powerful, composition's excellent. There's soft parts and there's surprisingly heavy and crunchy guitar riffs bordering on hard rock and metal. Yeah, a lot of Deep Purple vibes, but even heavier and proggier. The whole album flows like it's meant to be listened to in one go. In particular, I love the transition between the song Kiddo and Someone Else's Wannabe. So check out Maestro by Magic Pie, my number 23. At number 22, I've got Dominic Sanderson and his album Blazing Revelations. This is some experimental progressive rock with alternative, even Canterbury scene, folk, jazz fusion, bit of avant-garde and kind of out there sounds to it. Also in my excellent tier. And check out this track from the Weeping Cradle as a preview here. This is Dominic's second album. He's from the UK. And the last track on the album is a 16-minute prog epic called Lullaby for a Broken Dream, which is awesome. Check this album out if you're a fan of King Crimson, Steven Wilson, and Pink Floyd. This has some of the angular, dark, and experimental moments that sound like King Crimson. Some moments even have horns, and then there's other moments that sound like singer-songwriter tracks like Steven Wilson and Pink Floyd songs, but with just enough sprinkling of artsiness and psychedelia, so you always know you're not listening to an alternative rock or a folk rock band. That's Dominic Sanderson with Blazing Revelations at number 22. At number 21, I've got a split LP by Giorgio and Breidablik called Contraster, symphonic progressive rock with electronic and folk influences. It's in my excellent tier. And this one's an interesting one because there's two tracks on here and there's two bands. And they're both like 20-minute epic tracks and they're both called Contraster. So both there's two songs that have the same name on this album. One of them's by Giorgio, one of them's by Breidablik. They're not the same song at all. Uh, but it's just kind of a cool way to format an album. You don't see that very often. This is the eighth album by Giorgio, and I think it's the seventh album by Breidablik. And it's pretty cool to see a collaborative album between these two Norwegian bands. They do have a member in common, so that's perhaps why they're collaborating. And my favorite track on here is the Giorgio one, but I do think both are excellent. So check it out, Giorgio and Breidablik with Contraster. And at number 20, I've got Black Dime Cabaret with Act Two, The Phantom Ballet. This one's like a progressive rock opera with alternative, indie, and musical theater and big band influences. It's in my excellent tier as well. Check out this track, The Man Without Morality, for a preview. This is the second album by this Australian band. If you're a fan of Dirt Poor Robins and The Deer Hunter, I think you'll like Black Dime Cabaret. It's kind of like a combination of those bands. They have both female and male vocals, but predominantly female. Very inspired by musical theater, but also prog rock. And seems like it's a concept album and a rock opera, though I didn't dive into the story. But the music here is excellent. So check out Black Dime Cabaret Act 2, The Phantom Ballet. And at number 19, I've got Sycophant. This one's an EP called Red Sun. It's prog rock with jazz fusion and a little bit of metal influences, but not enough to call it a metal album. It's in my excellent tier, one of the best EPs of the year, and really digging this band. They're from Norway, and I love their self-titled debut album from 2024. I did a full-length review for that on my channel. Happy that the band sends me their promo copies of their stuff. And yeah, this is equally as excellent as their debut. And I believe there's going to be another release, or what they said to me at the time is there's going to be another EP that's interconnected to this release later, and then together the twin EPs will form a cohesive album, which will be available in physical formats. But that other EP was supposed to come in 2025 later, but it hasn't come yet. So probably 2026. Let's keep my fingers crossed for that. Really looking forward to hearing what they do next. And yeah, this one is an interesting album. The second track reminds me a lot of Breathe by Pink Floyd. Some of the other moments on the album, though, remind me of heavier bands, like some parts sounding like Alex Lifeson of Rush on guitar, but trippy and psychedelic. Some parts sounding like Led Zeppelin, and some parts even sounding more closer to some stoner sounding, almost metal, almost grunge sounds like Queens of the Stone Age, He Is Legend, Mastodon, that kind of thing. So check that out. That sounds good to you. Red Sun by Sycophant. At number 18, I've got Everon with their album Shells. This one's a great kind of neo-prog album, even a bit of metal chunkiness in some of the tracks here, but it's not really a metal album either. But check out this track, No Embrace, for a preview here. This is Everon's eighth album. They're a German band. It's the first of theirs that I heard, and a lot of the album feels like this a Broadway rock opera style. Mostly male vocals, some tracks with female vocals, lots of variety on display here. Some of the Broadway style, some ballads, some have a world music and folky vibe to them, and some have a more hard rock and metal vibe to them. There actually is another track on this album that has there's a track that has a harsh vocal moment, which I wasn't expecting, but again, not really a metal album, just kind of like that Oak album where there's like one moment on the entire album where there's a harsh vocal. But yeah, I love No Embrace, Guilty as Charged, and Travels. Travels is a great emotional ballad. Grace is another nice ballad. Children of the Earth. The closing track, Flesh, is an over 14-minute long prog epic track, which also appears on their 2002 album called Flesh. So they redid it. And yeah, just a great album by Everon. Shells is my number 18 prog rock album of 2025. And my number 17 is Eden Song with Our Road to Dust. This is progressive rock, also one that has a bit of metal influence, but I didn't think it was metal enough to call it prog metal. But it's also kind of folky, kind of Jethro Tull inspired with flutes and stuff like that. Also my excellent tier. Check out the title track for a preview. This is Eden Song, their third album. They're an American band, and this is the first of theirs that I heard, but I really enjoyed it. The whole album's excellent start to finish. It had a lot more variety than I expected. Some parts sounded like classic prog bands like Yes with amazing vocal harmonies. Some parts had great acoustic guitars, flutes, and violins. Some parts are a bit heavier and had ripping electric guitars. And yeah, even the intro on Wickler Bast even reminded me of CAFO by Animals as Leaders with a fast riff in the background that's similar to that. And the bass on that track's amazing too. Just great playing, great compositions, great vibes on this album. Really great band. Eden Song and their album Our Road to Dust is my number 17 prog rock album of 2025. At number 16, I've got Firebrand by Ring Van Mobius. This is symphonic prog rock. Excellent tier stuff. And check out the title track for a preview here. This is their fourth album. Ring Van Mobius is a Norwegian band. Apparently, this will be their last album, unfortunately. Everything they've done is excellent. If you're a fan of Emerson, Lake and Palmer and King Crimson, should definitely check this out. The whole album sounds like it could have been made and released in the early 70s. And there's only three tracks on this album. One is over just over 13 minutes, another one's over 24 minutes. So they have some pretty lengthy, epic tracks, and it just continues their streak of excellence. It makes me sad that this is their last. From here on in on my list, pretty much every band from here on up is like earned themselves a place on my favorite bands list, which is consistently growing. But like these are the types of bands that when I hear anything by them, I want to binge their entire discography. And Ring Van Mobius falls into that category. They're just really fun to listen to. So that's my number 16. At number 15, I've got ORK with Fire Hose of Falsehoods. This is prog rock. It's got alternative rock, grunge, some metal, art rock, experimental influences. It's in my excellent tier. Check out this track, Dive In, which is the epic on the album. This is their fifth album. They're a multinational band that feature members from Australia, Italy, and the US. And the band features former Porcupine Tree bassist Colin Edwin and former King Crimson drummer Pat Mastelotto, both amazing players. Lead vocals are Lorenzo Esposito Fornaciari, and he actually sounds like Chris Cornell quite a lot. So check this out if you want to hear the sound of Porcupine Tree meets Soundgarden. Fire Hose of Falsehoods by ORK, my number 15 prog rock album of the year. And at number 14, I've got Pattern Seeking Animals with Friend of All Creatures. This is pretty straightforward prog rock album, but it's just excellent and really well done. Check out this track, The Seventh Sleeper, for a preview here. This is their fifth album. Pattern Seeking Animals is an American band formed by current and former members and collaborators of the great band Spock's Beard. This album continues the excellence displayed on their first four albums. It's a must hear if you like Spock's Beard or if you like prog rock music that has catchy melodies and focuses on melodic ideas instead of heaviness or technicality. You can also hear that these players have technical chops for sure, but they play in a very restrained way. But if you want to just hear some great melodies and cool prog, check out Friend of All Creatures by Pattern Seeking Animals. At number 13, I've got Paradigm Blue and their album Frontiers. This one is, I guess it's an EP. They're kind of marketed as if it was an EP, but it's over 37 minutes long, so it could be considered a full-length album. And it's just prog rock, some kind of hard rock vibes to it, kind of classic sounding like Rush. So they sound like Rush, but if Tobias Forge from Ghost was the lead singer of Rush, I think they're a very underrated band. And yeah, like one of the best EPs of the year. I can't believe it even counts as an EP, but look at this. Only 87 monthly listeners. Let's give this band some more listeners. They are just amazingly talented. Think they really deserve to be much bigger than that. So check out Frontiers by Paradigm Blue. At number 12, another really underrated band that released two albums this year. I've got Whippy Bondstack and their album Tactile Demons. And this is another underrated one, only 563 monthly listeners, but let's get them a lot bigger too. I'd love to see that. Tactile Demons is an instrumental album. It's the only instrumental album on this list. And spoiler alert, it's my favorite instrumental album of the entire year. Uh, I believe. I believe I gave it number one on my instrumental top instrumental video. So that's a spoiler for that. And yeah, this is avant-garde, instrumental, experimental, progressive rock. It's got art rock, pop, jazz fusion, math rock influences in there. Excellent tier stuff. This is Whippy Bonstock's third album, and just great instrumental for fans of Bubble Math, Mr. Bungle, and King Crimson. Though I do prefer the second album they released in 2025, which has vocals. This album ends with a 21-minute prog epic, which is awesome. So you'll probably see more Whippy Bonstock higher up on my list in this video. But number 12 is their album Tactile Demons. At number 11, I've got Spock's Beard, The Archaeoptimist. This one is symphonic progressive rock, and it's just excellent tier stuff. Check out this track, Forethoughts, which I believe continues a series of tracks that Spock's Beard has been doing across albums. And this is their 14th album. They're an American band. Their early albums with Neil Morse are near masterpieces for me. They haven't really reached those heights since he left, though. They do still put out excellent stuff without him. This album has collaborations with Michael Whiteman from I Am the Manic Whale, who helped Ryo Okamoto with his amazing album, The Myth of the Mostraphus. So Michael Whiteman helped write a lot of this, which is intriguing to me. And I think this is the best Spock's Beard album since Neil Morse left for me. I do want to listen to all the other post Neil Morse albums more to make sure of that claim, but as I'm more familiar with the Neil Morse stuff, but everything they do is excellent. They maybe have a couple albums that dipped a little bit throughout their 14 album discography, but every track on this new one's excellent. And Aforethoughts has awesome Gentle Giant vocal harmonies. The title track, The Archaeoptimist, is an awesome 21-minute prog epic track. The whole album reminds me of Kansas, Styx, and Gentle Giant, but with a more modern and uniquely Spock's Beard sound to it. So check that out. Spock's Beard, The Archaeoptimist. Now we're into the top 10. At number 10, I've got King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who's unfortunately removed their music from Spotify, or maybe I shouldn't say unfortunately. I mean, that's their choice. It's unfortunate for me not being able to listen to it in this playlist, but they have their reasons, uh, whether that's, you know, what the founder of Spotify invests his money in terms of like military investments and stuff like that. Or there's lots of grievances that artists have with Spotify around how much artists make off streaming platforms and things like that, and their potential future use of AI to replace artists and just pushing their own, uh, being able to use their algorithms to push the music that they favor, things like that. But Phantom Island, though it's not on Spotify, is an excellent album. I'm pretty sure that you can listen to it over on Bandcamp or just buy the physical album if you really want to support King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. This one's kind of symphonic prog, but it's kind of like this orchestra. It's kind of got this blues rock vibe, but then this orchestra was like added on to it. So it's kind of bluesy, poppy, psychedelic, soulful, even like southern rock at times. Kind of sounds like some rock from back in the late 60s, early 70s, but with an orchestra added and some modern flair. Check out the track Grow Wings and Fly for a preview of Phantom Island by King Gizzard. It's their 27th album. They're an Australian band that I love, and it was developed alongside of Flight B741. But Flight B741, their last album, contained the more rowdy songs, while the new album is a bit more laid back. And it's cool that they played the album with a different orchestra in each city. And really cool to hear King Giz with an orchestra. And this band's always trying something new with each album. That's what makes them so exciting to me. Definitely not their best album though, but definitely not their worst. I'd probably put it somewhere in the middle of their discography in a ranking, and I love their discography a lot. So even a mid-tier King Giz album, it got number 10 on my favorite prog rock albums of 2025. And then at number 9, I have what I believe is the top rated EP on this list, which is North American EP by the Deer Hunter, a band that I love. Prog rock with indie rock influences. And this EP has five new songs that were in the film that they put out about their 2023 North American tour. They in the film they were instrumental without vocals, but on this EP they have vocals. And I think this could be their best EP they've done yet. And they've done a lot of good EPs, but again, I feel like I need to re-listen to all their EPs, like the Color Spectrum ones in particular, to be sure about that claim. But yeah, these songs are a bit more straightforward and normal sounding than the typical Deer Hunter albums. But they have enough cool production tricks, great composition, great melodies, unexpected turns and directions, artsy psychedelic vibes that make it fun to listen to. So check out North American EP by the Deer Hunter. And at number 8, I've got The Father of Make Believe by Coheed and Cambria. Or the full title, I think, is Vaxis 3, The Father of Make Believe. They also released a deluxe version of it this year called The Father Make Believe, the New Entities Edition. So if you're going to get one, I'd probably recommend that because it has some great extra tracks on it. I don't know why they didn't just, I don't really like when bands do that, release an album and then immediately after release a deluxe version. Like if you're going to do a deluxe version, that should be like a 20th anniversary or, I mean, maybe a 10th anniversary, like 10 years later. But yeah, 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50, not like the same year or the next year. It's kind of annoying if you had those tracks. I wish they just put out the full deluxe edition as the album, even though it would be pretty long. I'd still like it better that way. And this is Coheed's 11th album. And unfortunately, they're a bit past their prime, but even even still, they're just an amazing band. I think their two Good Apollo albums are some of their best. I love their two Afterman albums and In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth. I did a ranking for the Coheed discography on my channel with Kyle from All Media Reviews, which you can check out on my channel. I think we both had some pretty good commentary on their career and we're aligned on a lot of things for the most part. And I was hoping this new one would get back up to their peak level. Doesn't quite get there, but I do think it's the best of the three Vaxis albums and still gets my excellent tier rating. And this track, Corner My Confidence, is kind of like a soft ballad track, but it's beautiful. I just love it. And the album has some great variety. There's heavy tracks like Blind Side Sunny, which actually features some screams, which is unusual for them. Uh, Coheed's genre is kind of hard to describe. They're like progressive rock. They've got this pop punk vibe to them, post-hardcore, emo, alternative rock, hard rock. Some people even say metal at times and electronic influences. Um, yeah, the Blind Side Sunny features screams. It's heavy, but in like a party, happy hardcore kind of way. Play the Poets, another heavier song with some screams. But Corner of My Confidence is just a really great acoustic ballad, which they do really well generally. And I love some of the proggier tracks on here as well. Um, like the extended edition has the key entity extraction tracks, which I think are pretty cool. So check out Vaxis 3, Father Make Believe by Coheed and Cambria, my number 8 prog rock album of the year. At number 7, I've got another band I love, which is the Mars Volta and their album Lucro Sucio Los Ojos del Vaxio. I don't know if I said that properly. I don't speak Spanish, but it's progressive art rock. It's got Latin rock, psychedelic rock, pop, electronic, experimental jazz, ambient, and post-rock influences. Another one that I gave my excellent tier, but I contemplated calling it a near masterpiece. It just doesn't quite reach their former heights of some of their earlier stuff that I like better. But this is their ninth album. They're an American band. And what's pretty cool is they performed the whole album live before they even announced its upcoming release. while they were opening for Deftones. Not a lot of bands are ballsy enough to do that. So I watched the live performance on YouTube before the album release. So I actually heard the live version on YouTube before the full version. But of course, they were just like people recording it on their phone, so it wasn't the best quality, but really cool. Live, they had Terry Genderbender doing backing vocals, which added a cool duet vocal sound. And I like that this is more progressive than their last couple of albums that Mars Volta did. Still not quite as out there as their early stuff, but very cool. They focus a lot on synthesizer pads and textures behind each track here, giving it a lot more of an electronic feel and lots of cool songs. The Iron Rose is great. It's more of a pop song. Alba Della is a really cool song, but Cue the Sun's my favorite right now. And it's yeah, the vibe on here reminds me of Porcupine Tree at times with this dark sounding electronic music. Some parts remind me of King Crimson, like certain guitar parts and how the guitars sound, the horns and songs like En Lazen Las Tinieblas. And I love how the album flows from one track to the next, which feeling like a concept album, but that there's still a lot of nice variety and changes from track to track. Over the 18 tracks, they have a lot of short tracks on this album. So no long epics, but just a lot of short to the point tracks, 18 of them. Check out Mars Volta and their new album, which I won't try to pronounce again. At number six, I've got, now we're getting into the near masterpiece tier. I've got Lifting Lion Theory and their album Wonder. And this is another underrated one, I believe. Like, not very many monthly listeners. I scroll down, it doesn't even say. Maybe there's like none. I don't know. But 59 monthly listeners. So let's get this band some more listeners. They made a really awesome album this year called Wonder. Symphonic progressive rock. This is a debut album as well and featured highly in my favorite debut albums of the year video that I already put out on my channel. Check out this track Silver Spoon for a preview, although it doesn't really tell you what the whole album sounds like because this one's kind of the most like fun, funky, upbeat, danceable kind of tracks, the most accessible on the album, but they also have prog epics on the album too that are wild adventures. They're an amazing American band, and they have great female vocals by Little Miss, all clean vocals, really catchy. They could be pop vocals. And then the dude handles all the instruments. And yeah, this apparently this album is only the first part of music they wrote together with a pianist who sadly passed away. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the rest of the album. The rest of the music they wrote with them. Um, Hopefully they finish that up and put that out. Very sad story there. Rest in peace. And yeah, the album starts with a 24-minute prog epic called Wonder, which is amazing. Silver Spoon is track two, great song about a spoiled rich girl and spoiled rich boy. And third track, Behind the Veil, slows it down a bit, has some nice arpeggiated clean guitars with a great vocal melody, and the album ends with another long track, over 13-minute long prog epic called Hummingbird, which is also great. Now we're in the top five here. At number five, I've got More on Police with Pachinko. Great symphonic progressive pop rock with alternative electronic country and a couple moments of metal thrown in there too. This one's a near masterpiece as well. Check out Pachinko Part 1 for a preview. This is More on Police's fourth album. They're a Norwegian band. It's the first album of theirs that I listened to, but of course I went back and listened to their entire discography after hearing this. The vocals on this album remind me a bit of Ross Jennings from Haken. Um, but vocals on their previous albums kind of reminded me more of Flummox. They were more quirky. There's a little bit of that here. Lyrically, the album as a concept, they also wrote this after the untimely death of their friend and drummer, Thor Omland Pedersen. And it's a concept album about a guy who turns into a sentient pachinko machine in Tokyo. So lyrically, this album has a bit of a Japanese vibe. It mentions Japanese location, and it's pretty fun to listen to. Drums here are performed by Billy Reimer from the Dillinger Escape Plan, which is another band I love, which is a surprising pick for this band because they don't sound anything like the Dillinger Escape Plan. He plays in a much more straightforward way here, but he still does incredibly tasteful and impressive stuff. Musically, this focuses a lot on pop, prog rock, metal, country, 80s synth music. It makes a unique and spectacular sound. If you like Moon Safari, I think you'll like this. It's a similarly fun and uplifting, happy sounding prog rock album with great vocals and harmonies and melodies and amazing compositions. Check out Pachinko by Moron Police. At number four, I've got Tritop with their album Tritop 120, the second album by this Italian band, progressive rock with some hard rock influences in my near masterpiece tier. Their debut album, I think, was one of the best debut albums of the decade so far for me. And this one is right in line with that. Their debut is called Rise of Cassandra from 2023. I think this one might even be better than their debut. Great vocals that remind me of Styx meets Toehider. Great progressive compositions, fun staccato rhythms, odd time signatures. Only four tracks on the album. Just a short opener that's under 2 minutes, but the second track is a 13-minute epic. Then there's a 10-minute mini epic, and then a massive 23-minute epic to end the album. Every track's amazing, flows really well. Their only mistake here was releasing it on December 12th, which was after a lot of people made their lists. I feel like they should have put it out maybe a little bit earlier in the year, and then this would have made a lot more year-end lists rather than just my videos. I think some other people might have mentioned them, but I feel like this would have created more buzz, had more time to build up if it came out in an earlier month. So check out Tritop 120 by Tritop. At number three, I've got Jonas Lindberg and The Other Side with Time Frames. Great progressive rock album, near masterpiece. Check out this Faces of Stone track. Third album by this Swedish band. And I love their first two albums as well. So I kind of expected this would be great. I love everything they've done. And I do think I like their second album slightly better than this, but I prefer this one to the debut. This one ends with an over 17-minute prog epic called The Wind, which is awesome. It has an instrumental track called Groovin', which is nice. There's moments of both male and female vocals on here. And they have three different vocalists, and I enjoy all three of their vocals. They bring nice variety to the album. I love this Faces of Stone track. Also, End of the Road is awesome. Check out Jonas Lindberg on the other side with Time Frames. At number two, I've got Whippy Bonstack with Correct Irregulars. I mentioned them before on the list, so they're the only band that appears on this playlist twice. And just an awesome, awesome album. This one has vocals, unlike their other one from this year, which is instrumental. This is avant-garde, experimental, progressive rock. It's got art rock, pop, math rock, indie rock, electronic vibes. Near masterpiece. Check out Wish Tank for a preview here. And it's a solo project, actually, of a songwriter, composer, Ben Conigliaro. And it's great that he's put out two albums this year, so he's been keeping himself busy. Very quirky, very fun, very complex. Again, for fans of Bubble Math, Mr. Bungle, and King Crimson, it's all over the place and complex like those, but manages to do that while being more accessible than those bands overall, in my opinion. Uh, it is a solo album, but not to say that he does everything on his own. He does have some collaborators here. Uh, Collaborates with some other vocalists and some flute from Elizabeth Smiland, some bass, tenor saxophone, and trumpet. performed by some other individuals too. So check out Wimpy Bonstack and Correct Irregulars. And at number one, of course, I've got one that I've talked about a bunch this year that made a lot of my list. My favorite debut album of the year, Jacob Roberge with The Passing, my number one prog rock, not metal album of 2025. And I think this one placed number three on my overall top favorite albums of 2025. So there were a couple prog metal albums that topped it. But this one's just a masterpiece. It's prog rock. It's got a bit of metal sprinkled in. Jacob Roberge is a Canadian musician. And if this is his debut, I'm really excited to see where his career goes. I love that the album ends with a 32-minute prog epic called The Passing, just mind-blowing and amazing. And the whole album is amazing too. Before the epic track, there's lots of moments that sound more like singer-songwriter songs, but there's also moments of intense prog and guitar shredding. So check this out if you're a fan of Porcupine Tree, Riverside, Styx, Pink Floyd, Rush, Mike Oldfield, Neil Morse, Transatlantic, and Dream Theater. Imagine a mix of those bands. Besides the epic, my favorite track is Garden of Souls. The vocals are great. They kind of remind me of Dan Tompkins from Tesseract on the, but no screams, just kind of the clean side. Very beautiful, very melodic. Check out The Passing by Jacob Roberge. And that's it for my top 25 prog rock albums of 2025. What do you think of this list? Let me know down in the comments. Did I inspire you to check anything out that you hadn't heard before? If you do, let me know what you think of it. I always like knowing if I turn somebody on to a new artist or new album. And did I miss anything? Are you surprised by any omissions? There's it's possible that there's other great stuff that I didn't hear. There's also, I listened to a lot of great prog rock this year. So even my number 29 is amazing, 28 is amazing. There's albums that didn't make the list that are still amazing. I just don't want to talk all day. So I had to narrow it down to 25. And I'm getting to the end here of my year-end content on my channel, but my next video will probably be my top 25 prog epic tracks of 2025. And that's kind of all I have planned in terms of wrapping up 2025. Now I'm kind of focusing more on the 2026 music that's coming out, and I'm going to be following that and posting my first impressions of stuff that comes out every week. So my next video in that series, New Music Picks 2026, will be talking about Soen of Sulfur and Creator. So if you like metal, rock, and prog music, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and stay in the loop on when I post new videos. And until then, peace out.